What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome to another episode of Marvel Future Fight. So I kind of wanted to jump in this video, give you guys a quick down and dirty take on what we've got coming in the July update for the Thor Love and Thunder before the release hits tomorrow. We're currently in maintenance, so I think we'll be into like maintenance until like 6 o'clock in the morning East Coast Standard Time. So let's take a look at this, and that way we can kind of prejudge first impressions, see whether or not we're going to be right or wrong about a lot of things inside here. So first off, what are we getting inside the update? There's going to be 6 new artifacts. The 3 are obviously going to be for Thor, Jane Foster, Thor, the Mighty Thor, and then for Valkyrie. But we're also getting potential awakenings and artifacts for Scourge, Angela, and who else was it? Can't even remember now. It was characters that really didn't matter. Oh, that's right. The Destroyer armor. Feeling a lot of ways about this update, namely the fact that there is not a lot here on first look at it, but I'm going to temper that with telling you calm the fuck down. I'm seeing some of the comments on the boards and stuff like that. Like if you go into some comment sections over here, you're gonna be like people deleting accounts and shit. Like, shut the fuck up. If you want to delete your account, go ahead and delete your account. No reason for you to run to the forum boards to be like, I'm gonna delete my account. Just delete it. Like the self-entitlement and importance of people. But anyway, so we've got 6 new artifacts that are coming. I'm not exactly happy about 3 of the artifacts. Not exactly, well, none of the artifacts. I don't care for the artifact system, but I'm also not excited about the potential awakening transcendence for Angela, the Destroyer, and Scourge, especially because these characters are not getting uniforms. And we've long held that this doesn't make sense, especially when we're moving into tier 4 advancements for characters. And now we're really leaving behind characters while giving them meaningless awakenings, basically. Like Angela getting an awakening, Destroyer getting an awakening, Scourge getting an awakening without getting any kind of uniform to amplify their powers. Anyways, just basically makes it a useless character. You're basically looking at a Shadowland Claire, basically, is what you're doing with those characters by getting their awakening. And it just doesn't make sense overall. We are getting a new legendary battle for New Asgard's Destiny. I do like the idea. This is going to be our first place that we actually get to see Gore. I know a lot of the comments are pissed because Gore is not going to be a playable character featured right now. That doesn't mean that he's not going to be a playable character. We've got the character model. A little bit that I really wanted to see him inside World Boss Legend because he is a character of that power level, especially with the all-black Necro Sword that I don't necessarily know that they're going to push into the movie because we've got this new God weapon that's coming in, the little lightning bolt, the weapon of the gods or whatever, seemingly taking the presence of the all-black Necro Sword. If you don't know the story there, basically the all-black Necro Sword is tied to Null, the god symbiote, so he ends up with this weapon, and that's how he becomes powerful enough to be killing gods in the first place. It seems like the way the movie trailers and stuff like that have been is that we're gonna supplant that Necro Sword with this weapon of the gods that looks whatever, the MacGuffin that it is, whatever. All right, so we've got a number of other things coming for the Multiverse Invasion and the new collection added for the Shield Archive. So let's jump in here right away and take a look. So I don't have anything to compare the uniform for you because we're out of here, and I'm not Beast Mode, I'm not Cynic Alex. I can't remember what the previous uniforms were, so I'm going to judge it on the merits of what is going here. So his new skill, the ultimate skill, you've noticed that they've done some cleanup language here. So we've got Thunderblow, which is his ultimate skill. I hate to see the shock damage. I hate to see bleed as much because we know these things don't really matter at all. So I always ignore those things almost in entirety to see shock damage. So he gets stunned for 2 seconds, the ignore immunity. We've got the all defensive down, which gives for 70% and ignores immunity. That's good. Then we get the 80% chance to penetrate and the invincible as well with the increase of basic damage for 35% for 1 attack. So that's good. The shock damage, I can care 2 shits less about it, like, to be honest with you. And then his Power of the Asgard passive, we get the ignore target's dodge rate by 35%, the increased lightning damage by 25%. We get the Protector of Asgard, which is giving you a 70% chance to penetrate and increases lightning damage by 65%. So the effect reactivates in 8 seconds after removed. And his effect over here for his self effect from the uniform it reactivates in 1 second after remove. I like the fact that they're letting us know how these effects are going to be working with debuffs and stuff like that if they're removed. So this is pretty good, right? So 70%, 80%. So he's doing a lot of penetration here with his damage to make sure that it gets through. Then we get his first skill, which is now called Thunder Slash. You see here, right? It's 40% bleed damage every 1 second. I really don't care. It removes elasticity as well. The stun is 3 seconds on that skill. Nobody's going to really cycle into this skill. Basically, it's an opener closer move, right? Then we get the Mjolnir Rush, which we've all kind of come to. To be honest with you, I wasn't really excited about the skill. It's a nice V-pad skill, but I'm not really excited about it at all. It does have paralysis, ignores immunity on it. Not a whole lot in his 1 and 2 kit skill. So we basically get a character that is going to boil down to 3-4-5 or 3-5-4, and then you're going in with his ultimate skill as well for 3-6-5 or something like that, 5-4 I think it was. We'll have to see how the animations play out if they're still the same. So we get Call the Lightning, which is a stun for 1 second. It has a 3% decrease of or 50% decrease of lightning resist, which ignores immunity, and then it gets a guard against 8 hits. I'm like, what the hell? Like, to see guard, I'm like so confused. But obviously you're opening with this skill because of their ignore immunity and the guard hit, the guards on there as well, right? Just so weird to still see guards and just for 8 hits. Like, okay. But anyways, we move on to his 4th skill, which is in Endless Strike, and we get 50% bleed damage and 50% shock damage. 20% or 55% ignore immunity for lightning resistance and a paralysis on there, while we get a 25% recovery of max HP and a nice bonus for increase all basic attack 65, 1, and 35 for his crit rate. So this is good because you can see that 17-second cooldown, which is a really long time, because basically you're looking like an 8-second window to be able to reuse this. But we remember this from his previous skill, right? It was the wind up for his skill or whatever, and you rolled into here. We'll have to still see the animations on these because I'm not very clear on what the animations are going to look like, but that's a long time, 17 seconds. His 5th skill also has a really long cooldown time in 10 seconds, right? So you deal bleed damage and shock damage again. I'm not really ecstatic about that, but this is where we see the true damage accumulation. Inside here, you see the invincible, the accumulation of true damage, and then you can see his 0.8% increase all basic attacks by 1%. So basically, you're essentially looking at a 3-4-5 skill, and then probably at some point going 3-4-6-5 probably. Yeah, I think 3-6-4-5 or 3-4-6-5, something like that. We'll have to play around with the skills a little bit in there. But it should be a very simple rotation for him inside the skills. Then we get Thor Jane Foster. Everything across the board for Thor Jane Foster is going to be a nice increase for her overall. She gets critical damage increased by 30%, decreased basic damage received from supervillain faction by 35%. This is good. We get the Bond of the Mighty, which is a passive, so it applies to all allies with shock abilities. So she basically comes in as a tier 3 support character in a sense, because it's going to ignore target's dodge rate by 30% and is also going to increase lightning damage by 40%. So essentially what I was fearful of happening is that you're going to have all these characters around Thor who boost him up instead of him just natively being the strong character that he is. I don't like this idea because that means I'm playing Thor in order to maximize, like for instance, in order to maximize, Thor's potential currently, you're pretty much using Beta Ray Bill or some other character to White Fox to boost him up so that way you can get the, the most out of him. I would like to see a character in Thor who is strong enough to stand on his own. This is typically how we see the best of Thor inside comics and across the board. So having Jane be this support character is just a little bit weird in my opinion, right? But then we roll into Thor's advance, shock damage again, lightning damage, blah. So there's nothing on her 1 skill, nothing on her 2 skill. We roll into 3 and we get 20% shock damage, whatever. We get her true damage accumulation on her 3rd skill. She's getting a 1% increase of all basics for 1%. And then we can see her 4th skill over here, 30% shock damage. It has a stun and ignores immunity. She gets a very lesser percentage than Thor, which is just 15% recovery of the max HP and 1% chance for immunity to all damage. So that's really nice. Increase all basic attacks by 40%, on her skill is 8 seconds. So you're going to realistically be opening up with the 4th skill for her, and then probably rolling into 5 and then 3. So hers will probably be 4, 5, 3 is I think what we're looking at there. Deals shock damage, decrease all basic defenses on the 50%, and then we get 60% chance to penetrate with lightning immunity, and increase all basic attacks by 50, 10, and 20. So she's essentially looking like she's going to be a pretty decent character to pair up with Thor, and ultimately you'll end up having a damage dealer support character, because this is not something to just golf at, in my opinion. But you're probably looking at like a 4-5-3 rotation for her inside here. We'll have to see what her T3 says on it. And then we got Valkyrie. Good things to see is that Valkyrie is still going to have her Shield Maiden of Asgard, which applies to all allies on it. So this is going to be really nice. Basically, you have a really good team, and basically pairing up Valkyrie, Jane, and Thor all in one team here, because you can basically put Thor, Jane, and you know, probably I can't see their leader abilities inside here. But if I remember, Thor's wasn't a really good leadership, but you can probably put all of these characters on the one team. And so she has the leader. Okay, so the leader ability for her is not going to work. You're basically utilizing her for the whatchamacallit over here. So she got the activation rate when bleed skill is used, 15% recovery of max HP. Nope, I don't really care to see that. And then we see over here she ignores applies to all allies. This is going to be the good bit. So Thor will be very useful against like Null. He'll probably be very good against Ultron as well, because of the sustained lightning attack damage that he can do to him, right? So we look at her King. So there's nothing there's nothing at all going on here on her 1 skill. Her 2 skill, there's nothing going on as well. But then we roll over to her 3rd skill, and it's the counterattack abilities. I actually like these counterattack abilities. They're pretty good. But she gets a 15% recovery of max HP over here. The paralysis, the immunity, she gets 30% chance to penetrate, 100% immunity, and then she gets the true damage accumulation as well, which is really nice. This is showing that big serious boost that you're getting to the character as well. She deals 30% bleed damage, so you can use this skill right here to get 15% recovery on that skill. And then you can see it's like 30% bleed damage, stun, silence, decrease all basic defenses, so 60% ignore immunity on here. She gets invincible, and then she gets an increased buff here. So it's really looking like she's going to have a weird rotation skill play in here, because there's not a whole lot going on her skills, especially when you look at Valiant Active. Like I'm wondering if something was missing here, because it's Valiant Advanced and there's nothing on here. It's just one simple skill. I have a hard time believing that this is what this is supposed to be in 2022, where there's no effects on her 5th skill at all. Something just doesn't seem right there, but we'll have to see what the skill looks like. So this is Thor Jane Foster's tier 3 advancement and ultimate skill. So we get 40% shock damage, a stun, 80% chance to penetrate, and then invincible and increased basic lightning damage. There's not a whole lot going on in the skill at all. So like realistically, you're pretty much looking at this skill as a lead into other skills for her, where it's probably really going to be just an side skill over here. I hate when I see these like it looks like it's doing a lot of hits, but we got to remember all these hits are also happening to an entire board of enemies over here. So how to see those. Angela, Scourge, and Destroyer getting those potential awakenings and transcendence over here. They always pretty much read exactly the same, so they feel very generic, especially even more generic when they're not paired with uniforms. Critical rate, critical damage increases, ignore target's dodge rate by 70%, 70% chance to penetrate, removes all debuffs, increase all basic attacks by 50%, physical damage. And if you look at these, they pretty much read exactly the same for all of the characters. I don't really see a whole lot difference inside them. It's like copy paste. And I'm not, I don't want to shit on the game necessarily, 7 years in, but this is pretty terrible in terms of that, right? Because I would like to see, especially a character like the Destroyer and Angela, right? Angela is almost just as important of a character in comic history as Thor Jane Foster is, especially when you look at how that character transitioned to Marvel from the Spawn comic books and so forth, and her place currently held inside the Marvel Universe. So I feel like this is almost a little bit of a disrespect to the character on a whole, and I would love to see more done for this. The animations for the potential awakenings, they're not even necessarily something that looks great, if I'm being 100% honest. Yeah, I'm to be honest with you, I'm not happy with these. I would love to see these characters given better justice. Like to see Scourge get this kind of justice. All right, cool. You know what? No problem. It's Scourge. You know what I mean? Like that dude had his time to shine inside, you know, Thor Ragnarok. But to see him, you know, to see Angela especially get this kind of treatment, yeah, I don't know about that one, right? So then we get Thor his tier 4 advancement and his striker skill. So basically for his skill is we get a increased active buff effect by 10% and increase all element damage by 50%. So this should, since like reasonably what we thought the skill would do is definitely going to make Thor a lot more powerful. I mean, the active buff effect by 10%, that can be a whole lot. And then the increase all element damage alone basically becomes another leadership skill kind of thing for him. So we might end up seeing Thor get be better used with a judgment instead of a rage or something like that. You have to see how that plays out in terms of his proccing and stuff like that, but we'll have to look at that. Then we get the legendary battles. So the mighty arrival to acquire 6th rank Jane Foster. So everybody's going to have a chance at basically getting that character. And then it's going to be 2,500 crystals. We've seen that before. We get a the fragment, the artifact for Thor. We also get a greed CTP, and we get a potential awakening over here. The really bad thing about this is I think a lot of people, greed is one of those CTPs that we're just like, what do you really do with that? You know what I mean? Like what do you really do with that? I hate that this symbol, the awakening of the gods, the god weapon or whatever it is, like I'm not happy with this for a number of reasons, but whatever. The package doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, look like it's all that worth it. 2,500 crystals for a CTP of greed. I would have much preferred to see a CTP selector instead of a CTP of greed be featured here, but maybe there's going to be something there that we don't know about or that we're not prepared to do with. I haven't seen a lot from these CTPs. I have about 3 or 4 of them, and I don't have them equipped to characters. But we'll have to see how that works out. No reason for anybody to purchase a special offer. I'm actually tired of seeing these special deals because they're not really special. Thor's a free-to-play character, so it's, you know, it's one of those things that's really easy for you to come up on. So you're gonna have 3 stages inside here: intergalactic self-discovery, new Asgard nuisance, and a mighty arrival. And then we have the legendary battle reward. So you can see the special icon weapon of the gods. Nobody's going to care about that. CTP of greed is something that could have been a lot better. The mark of the Odyssey, the 4. Happy that we'll get it for free, or, you know, get it for the crystals essentially. So it's good there. Now, some of the other controversial things that I think probably people were pissed off about is like this multiverse invasion, the addition of a ranking system for it. I don't know that people necessarily care about something like this, but it does give a reason for people to actually play to try to generate higher scores. So you can see like 500,000 gold is basically acquire for first place. I don't think a lot of people are going to care about this. And it's something that really, I don't think that is necessarily, because basically right now, what people were asking for is that when you hit the cap for what it is, why don't the mode just end instead of continue on for that extra 2-3 minutes? It's just weird that it continues on. So I think a lot of people would have preferred that it stopped instead of having these rewards. I know I would have. So giant boss raid improvements have been made apparently. So it kind of like explains the effects more for you. We know that we're going to get the universal Book of Ashanti now added inside there. But basically overall, I don't know that it's necessarily been easier when I played it. Well, we'll see if it's easier any more than that, because obviously it's going to be next rotation. Like I left mine for the morning so that way I can do it and hope that maybe the book is going to be there. I don't know why they, well, we know why they wouldn't just add the books in there. Then we've got the new collection event. So make sure that you're playing for that new collection event for the Shield Archive. And they've seemingly made it easier to track what's going on for the current collections items inside there. Not a whole lot. This is like a quality of life improvement and change and stuff like that inside there. I think people overall will be happy with some of these things, but they seem somewhat inconsequential. It'd be nice if these archive things were a little bit easier to receive, because I mean, you can grind and you're just not receiving those things. So these are the new artifacts inside here, right? So we basically got Mark of the Odyssey, increases lightning damage by 30% of lightning resist. And we get increased basic damage dealt to the supervillain faction by 15%. So that's not bad. Hero's Secret, Thor Jane Foster, activation requirement, whatever. Increases basic damage dealt to enemies with 50% HP or higher by 25%. So that should be pretty useful. PvE stats for both of those characters. If you haven't paid attention, this is not a PvP update. This is a PvE stat update. And then we get Warrior Soul for Valkyrie, increases basic damage dealt to bosses by 15%. So that should be pretty good for PvE. We get the increase all basic attacks by 25% for Angel of Hell, Angela. We get the Immortal Destroyer. This one, I actually like this one a lot. Restores HP equal to 5% of reflect damage dealt to the target and restores bonus HP equal to total instinct at 10%. Can restore up to 5% of max HP and has a 1 second cooldown. So I'm wondering how this artifact will make him inside some builds, specifically like, you know, PvP builds where we have those. I'm interested in this one overall. It'd be even more interesting if they had a uniform update from my man, right? And then we get Blood Axe, Scourge, and it gets increase all basic attacks by 25%. Essentially what you're looking at with Scourge and Angela is a lot of nothing, right? The new Future Pass seasons and the specials are here, and we basically got the God Butcher icon and the Goddess of Thunder, Thor Jane Foster icon sitting inside there. Not interested in either one of these. To be honest with you, I have to say that the Thor Jane Foster one looks pretty cool. I'm not liking the update enough that I want to invest inside that legendary pass at all, but it's not bad because I think it's like only like $9.99 to upgrade to the legendary pass. And the legendary pass is probably pretty worth it with some of the other stuff that's in there. The God Butcher, I just really want the God Butcher that we're getting, you know, Gore from the comics more than I want Christian Bale's humanoid looking form. Inside there, we've got the uniform collection for these characters inside there, and then we've got some other quality of life improvements as well, but not a whole lot meat and potatoes there. They do have some updates right now that are coming for Dimension Rifts, basically drops of the card crafting cubes and things like that, which should be pretty nice. So I'm looking forward to that on a whole, because I've been trying to commit more to playing Dimension Rifts lately and making sure that I get in all 3 of them on a whole. So we'll see how that looks and how that goes, but that's the update. My first impressions coming from it is that we're basically going to get a Thor that feels a little bit more powerful at tier 4, mostly because of the tier 4 advancement. But like I said, with what we're looking at, meat and potatoes here, I think a lot of players have to recognize that this is a free-to-play friendly update. We're probably going to get Gore the God Butcher, and he might be a tier 3 at some point. A native tier 3 is what he should be. If you were to replicate him from the comics with the all-black Necro Sword, then he should probably be a native tier 3. But more than likely, I'm going to see that that character might not be so free to play. And then you guys are going to be pissed for that, because you're going to be wondering, why we got a new character and is going to be behind a paywall, crystal wall, or something like that. And then you'll be pissed about that. You'll be like, well, you'll be pissed about, why is the character behind World Boss Legend and I have to get the bios from World Boss Legend? Or you'll be pissed about something. And that's the problem, is that you'll always be pissed about something, especially when it doesn't even make sense for you to be pissed off. You essentially have 3 characters who are free to play in some way, shape, or form, especially in Jane Foster and Thor, who most people probably already have at tier 3, and is going to be a universal tier 4 for you to play with, and you're basically just upgrading the uniform. So why be so pissed off about it? I have no clue. Adding new characters to the game is nice. It is nice, but wait till the fucking mid-month before you start complaining, because if they gave you everything in this front-end loaded update when you know there's a mid-month coming, and then you were sitting there playing with the toy and you bored mid-month, you'd be like, well, there's not a whole lot to it. So wait, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't get it. You know, that's the way that they're rolling with it anyways. And it's going to take quite a few, you know, days anyways for most people to make that investment in Thor. Like they said, he was one of the top 5 most popular characters in the game. Most people are probably going to tier 4 Thor. I don't think it's going to be the same thing. But my word of warning here is be careful, because I don't anticipate that Thor will hold that slot as the most powerful universal character for long. Dogs are going off. That means that's the end of this video. Like and subscribe. Until next time, peace.